Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's a delight to see everybody here. My name is Ryan Niemiec, and I'm the Chief Science Officer of the VA Institute on Character. And I'm a clinical psychologist, licensed psychologist, and I see myself as part researcher, part practitioner, part educator, and just try to personify the VIA work as best as possible and trying to teach people about these character strengths, these core qualities that are within all of us. And we know that everybody learns in all sorts of different ways. So we try to offer all sorts of insights by books and articles and personalized reports and webinars like this and workshops and programs and email interactions and meetings and all sorts of things. So we're just delighted to see all of you here and delighted about the ripple effect that this work can create. You know, we've seen the ripple effect of the VIA character strengths throughout the world, dating back to 1999. And this webinar is just another continuation of that. And some of you might know VIA really well. Some of you know it a little bit. But whoever you are and wherever you are, this is another opportunity to create that ripple effect of identifying and getting more in touch with your best qualities and bringing them to the people that you love and bringing them to your clients and to your students and to your employees. And that creates more ripples of goodness in the world. And I don't think anybody here would argue that we need to continue to tap more into that goodness and spreading it. So it's a privilege and an honor to be part of this with all of you. And it is at the end of Mental Health Month. So that's another reason why we wanted our topic here to be on mental health. And so we're delighted that this can kind of close off the month in that way. Now, another thing I want to say before getting into our topic is that next month marks VIA's 25th anniversary. So this is a pretty kind of landmark accomplishment for VIA and something I'm really proud of on behalf of VIA. I haven't been here 25 years. I've been here for 15 years. And we know that VIA goes far beyond one person or a board team or the whole VIA Institute team. It's people around the world is what VIA is and represents. And so it's incredibly exciting to have reached the 25-year mark. And so I'll just kind of say happy anniversary to VIA for myself, and thank you for being here for that. For this, it's a bit of a celebration in that way. Now, this work, you know, when I think of these 25 years, it all started with a phone call from Neil Mayerson, who's the chairman of VIA, and the founder of Positive Psychology, Marty Seligman. And it was a meeting for the first time by phone. And really, that's what kicked off this 25-year mark. I mean, later that year, the organization, this nonprofit organization, VIA Institute, was founded, and then the rest is history. I won't go into the 10 hours of history on VIA and tell you what happened in every single year. That's perhaps for a different conversation. But from that conversation, it's remarkable that then this VIA survey, a few years later, it took a few years to get to that point. In about 2003, this VIA survey was brought forth. And would you believe it now, 25 years later, this is the most popular test in the world. When I say that, I mean the most popular, the most taken test of personality or strengths or positivity in the world, surpassing, as far as we can tell, a lot of the for-profit organizations that have similar tests like the Myers-Briggs or StrengthsFinder, Realize2, various other kinds of measures. So that's extraordinarily joyous for me to be able to share that with you and to see that that's where that phone call landed. And many, many things that we had to do to get to that point. But so that's an exciting thing. And then I think a year after the VIA survey was born, this VIA classification was birthed in the publication by Chris and Marty and the 55 scientists to put forth this common language of strengths. And then here we are about many years later, a couple decades later, and now there's 1,000 studies on that VIA classification. So pretty remarkable there too. And then, of course, the VIA site. This is the banner to the VIA website, and we have somebody come to the VIA site to look into their strengths about every 4 or 5 seconds. So it becomes a global hub or resource for people to learn more about their strengths and to dig more into um, their survey if they choose to take the VIA survey, or to learn more about the research or the practices, or to see videos, or to take courses and engage in programs and so on. So this is just kind of, I really could keep going for quite a long time on all the things, but I'm going to stop there and just conclude with a happy anniversary to VIA. And now I'd like to dive into our topic here today. And we really would like this to be something that we can maybe take a bit of a unique approach. So we have a little bit less than 1 hour together now remaining. And, we're going to have some lecture, and I want to share with you about some very recent research studies on character strengths and mental health, and offer you a lot of different ways to think about character strengths and mental health that I hope will help you personally, but also help you professionally, whatever your work is. And I want us to engage in some small group activity as well, where we can learn from one another and connect with one another. In some ways, this webinar could become an ongoing regular series, not just the topic of mental health, but the idea of doing learning in this way, where we have lecture, we have small group, we have a large group debriefing, and it becomes sort of like a community of researchers, a community of researchers and practitioners and educators coming together to learn from one another. And we don't have a lot of that. I'm not saying we don't have any of that in the world, but we don't have a lot of that where scientists can learn from practitioners, can learn from many of you who are on the ground doing this work. That's not very common for many scientists that I know that seek out what are the best things you're doing as a coach or as a psychologist or counselor. But then the reverse of the practitioners can learn from the scientists and from the academics and the latest details on a particular way of talking about a finding or the latest study and so on. So we're thinking this could become a community in that way. And so with that, I wanted to do a quick poll for you. So on the screen now, you should see really just one question. And I just want to invite you to vote whatever seems to align for you of, are you more of a practitioner? And by practitioner, I mean that very loosely. You're a manager, you're an educator, you're a helper, you're a coach, you're a psychologist, counselor, physician, nurse, anybody that's helping somebody else. I would even include a parent helping a child. And if you're not a researcher and you don't think of yourself as a practitioner, still say practitioner, because we're all practitioners. We're all helping ourselves with this work. So the practitioner could be the default. But if you're a researcher, maybe you do studies, or you could do studies, or you're in the academic world, you're in the university world, and so on. So that's part of the question. And then the other part of the question is, would you want to be part of a community like that? And I don't know if it would be once a month or every 2 months. I don't know exactly, but it would have a bit of a framework and layout like you're going to experience today, with lecture, small group learning, large group debriefing, and so on. Okay, so people are still voting, so allowing a few more people. Looks like we're at more than 80% still coming in. And by the way, we would if there's something that VIA is really good at, and I think it's a lot of things, but one thing VIA is really good at is actually truly listening to what people say. Now, it doesn't mean we can just do everything that people say, because we hear from people around the world daily in multitudes, but we really do listen. Like this poll, we're listening to this, and we will listen to it, and we then try to make the best decisions that align with VIA's strategic plan, but also that align with trying to help as many people in the world as possible. So that matters in that sense. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll. Thank you for the 88 people that participated. And if you didn't participate, thank you for being here as well. Okay, so mental health. So many different ways we can go with this. And those of you that know me and how I teach, I do try to present things from many different angles and lenses. because my intention is really to try to reach as many people as possible. So as a big picture way of thinking about mental health and character strengths, there's two overarching pieces that is kind of always in my mind for myself personally, but also for helping other people. One is that with this work with character strengths, we're trying to help move people from what's wrong to what's strong, and to help people to use what's strong, your character strengths, to deal with what's wrong. So both of these pieces become very important, and maybe that can be in our minds as we move forward. Now we can really begin by acknowledging and seeing that mental health is not the absence of problems. It's not the absence of disease. It's not just like, oh, I don't have depression, I don't have anxiety, so therefore I'm mentally healthy, or I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder, or an addiction, or bipolar, or schizophrenia, or eating disorder, and so on and so on. So that means I'm happy, or happy, healthy, and so on. So we're saying it's more than that. Mental health is more than the absence of the problems. And I can't think of a better component to be considering when it comes to our mental health is our best qualities. These personality traits, these are personality traits, consistent qualities within us that are consistent over time, over situations. That's what character strengths are. And they veer positive, right? So they veer toward goodness, if you will. Kindness, fairness, love. These are generally good qualities. It doesn't mean every time you use it, it's good, and it doesn't mean you can't overuse it. It doesn't mean you can't use it manipulatively. But generally speaking, character strengths are good qualities. So they're more kind of value positive than, say, like whether someone's an extrovert or an introvert, or someone's sensing or perceiving. These are more value neutral qualities. So there's you have these 24 capacities within you that you can tap into, that you can bring forth, that you can use. I mean, if that's not just critical, but just crucial to our mental health, I'm not really sure what is. So, we begin to say that a little bit, to expand upon this a little bit. Our character strengths make up our whole psychology. So psychology, if we simplify it, it's our thinking, feeling, and actions. It's a simplified way. And character strengths, we can think from them, we can feel from them, we can speak from them, and we can behave or act from them, right? So for example, you can have grateful thoughts, you can have loving thoughts about a person, right? We all know that. You can have thoughts that are critical thinking. That's the judgment strength. You can have creative thoughts, right? That's a big part of creativity, is the divergent thinking and thinking about many ways to solve problems. So it's very much a part of thinking. You can have spiritual thoughts. You can have hopeful thoughts. You can have thoughts around how you lead and your leadership qualities, and on, all 24. But then we can also feel from them. There's probably nobody here that would disagree with, you could feel love in your body, right? You could feel gratitude in your body, but it goes to all 24. So think about a time when you've been courageous or brave. You felt that. You felt that maybe compulsion to act, to take, as courage researchers say, to take a worthwhile risk is the definition of courage. So you felt that intention, and you felt that in your body. Maybe you had some courage thoughts, some brave thoughts too. And maybe you took a brave action, maybe not, but you could feel it. We could feel spirituality. We could feel hope. We know hope is very much in our mind and our thinking, to have hopeful thoughts about the future, and to have many pathways for the future, and to have a sense of agency, meaning that we can, that we feel that we can accomplish what we are going to accomplish in the future. But we could feel hope in our body. And then all of these strengths we can speak from. We can be kind in how we talk. We can have a sense of social intelligence and empathy when we're connecting compassionately with somebody. We can be grateful as we speak, creative as we speak. We know this. I mean, we play around with this in one of our courses called Mindfulness-Based Strengths Practice. And in the first 3 or 4 weeks, we deliberately have everybody practice speaking from character strengths, speaking from their character strengths and showing that any of the 24 are possible. And then, of course, we can act from the character strengths. Character is very much about how we live in the world and how we put ourselves out there in the world. So it's very much about our behaviors as well. Sometimes people ask, well, what's the difference between values and character strengths? Well, values live in our head, in our thinking and our feeling. And then character takes off, it includes that, but then it takes off from there. It's putting the values into action. That's character. So here we have the full psychology. There's all these capacities then that you have. So if you multiply 24 times 4, what you see on the screen here, suddenly you have far more capacities than you realized. All of that could be useful for mental well-being. Now, ever since I became a psychologist, actually before I became a psychologist, I was fascinated with the biopsychosocial spiritual model and fascinated with holistic approaches and looking at people, not just, I didn't go to get my doctorate in psychology just to study the mind. Literally, when I was in the graduate school, I was studying the body. I was studying things from the medical perspective and pain management perspective and reading ancient philosophy books and diving deep into all sorts of spiritualities and different spiritual approaches, because I knew that mind is connected to all of this and all of this is important. So here you have a snippet of that, mental, social, and physical. And I had the privilege of asking over 10,000 people a couple of years ago, which character strengths are most helpful for you with each of these areas? And it's more detailed than that. I could share with you the exact questions, but it was something like when you're feeling physically unwell in some way, maybe it's a disorder or condition, or you're just feeling well, what character strength is most helpful? When you're feeling socially isolated and lonely, which character strength is most helpful? When you're feeling mentally unwell or unstable, which character strength is most helpful? And so this was an international sample across the globe. And here's what I found is that, and I'll just give you the top 4 for each. So the top 3 strengths for mental health were, well, what would be most helpful for me, on average, what people said, is to be turn to kindness, to turn to curiosity, to turn to creativity. Now, that's probably not a surprise if there's researchers here that study creativity or researchers here that study curiosity or kindness. Probably not a surprise at all. But it might not be a surprise to anybody that for feeling mentally unwell, what would it be like if I just turned to an act of kindness to my partner? Or I went and helped a neighbor. I'm feeling really down. I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling depressed, but I'm going to go help my neighbor. What's going to happen there? That for that person, it probably would feel quite positive in that sense. In many ways, it might help. I'm not saying it cures everything. I'm just saying it helps. And then curiosity, the power of continuing to ask questions and to explore and to delve deeper. We're expanding our mind in that way. And creativity, again, not getting locked in one thing. So many ways to solve this problem or that problem. Okay, social health. Here were the top, 3 of the top 4: spirituality, social intelligence, and perspective. So by spirituality, we frame that as pursuing meaning, pursuing the sacred, pursuing that deeper transcendence, that deeper connection. Many people were reporting on average that was crucial for their social health. Social intelligence, which has a lot to do with empathizing and understanding where you're coming from and where other people are coming from, that's going to be crucial. I can't tell you how many times when I've maybe felt a little socially isolated, lonely, I force myself, have to force myself sometimes, force myself to connect with somebody, basically forcing myself to use social intelligence. And it's rare when I wouldn't feel better in doing that. In that particular moment. Again, not a cure-all, but should be part of the solution. Should be part of the thinking here with health and wellness. And then perspective, which means to take that bigger picture. Now, what about physical health? Well, these were the three. As you can see, these are all different patterns with each of these different domains. So perseverance, we found that in the literature on character strengths and physical health before, of the person continuing to do what they need to do to get well. And a lot of times it's kind of forcing oneself to be a little bit more active, a little bit more exercise, but doing it at one's own pace. So maybe it's walking a little bit when one doesn't feel like walking, and one's feeling some back pain, but one kind of really forces oneself to do the physical therapy stretching. So there's a quality of perseverance that people will tap into oftentimes for physical health. And then hope and self-regulation. So that sense of discipline with self-regulation, but also that hope of looking to the future, that, this physical unwellness that I'm feeling right now is not permanent. Things are always changing in some ways, and maybe I have chronic pain. And so that then tells me, gosh, it's going to be chronic for a long time, or whatever the time frame is we have in our mind. But I can tap into some hope to be able to find ways to get around the edges of the pain, and I can find some silver lining into the future. Now, and so that's the report of 12,000 people on average. Now, here's what's the one strength that was common across all three: love. I don't know that it was number one. I don't think it was number one for all three, but it was in the top 4 for all three. So love is a character strength. Now, some have called it the capacity to love and to be loved. So it's not just giving warmth and genuineness to other people and being a good listener and connecting with people, having that deep sense of thoughtfulness and connection, but it's also being willing and open to receiving the love back, where it can become a two-way street, mutual. And of course, as you all know, love has many forms. We could be talking about romantic love. We could be talking about friendship love. We could be talking about love for a child or a parent. We could be talking about love for agape, for something spiritual outside of ourselves, love of one's neighbor, love of one's enemy, and on the list goes. But so love is an important quality, not the answer to everything and not the cure, but is part of the solution and really important pattern here. Okay, so I want to now invite us to think about this question here. Do you think it's better to amplify a strength or to correct a weakness or a deficit? We, for a very long time, the field of psychology has said the latter. So for getting close to 100 years, that it's going to be better to correct a weakness. But researchers are now studying this and randomizing people to groups to either build up a strength of some kind or correct a weakness or deficit of some kind. So trying to really look at this important question and not taking it for granted what the answer would be. And I have summarized here 7 studies. In every single study, the strengths group did better, without question. Amplifying a strength did better than trying to remediate a deficit or a problem. And so we have this from the perspective of very serious clinical conditions. People diagnosed with major depression disorder had better outcomes, quicker depression recovery. Some researchers at Ohio State University, which is not too far from where all of us at VIA are, or many of us at VIA, I should say, about an hour and 15, 20 minutes. And then another great researcher, Michelle Krass, did a study on dealing more with anxiety, positive affect group versus a negative affect group, and more benefits significantly to the positive affect group. Affect meaning is kind of like the fancy word for emotions. And then you can see the list going down the line of, and many of these are from various other countries, Israel and the Netherlands, and some others. But the takeaway, whether we're talking about personal development or workplace work or studying for a test or dealing with mental struggles, serious mental struggles, or subclinical mental struggles, the strengths group did better. So, what I want as a takeaway here is not that there's only one way to think about it, and not that we're going to change everything and only look about strengths, but something that we've been missing with mental health is to build on and amplify what's already going right. And so we have a tremendous opportunity to do that here with the VIA classification and the character strengths work. And by all means, continue to correct deficits in yourself, or if you're a professional helping others, continue to focus on weaknesses and help with those weaknesses. Why wouldn't we? It's just that it might be better, might be more beneficial to amplify strengths. But that's not true for every person on the planet with every particular problem they could have. So we are the judges of it. We apply it and we think about this, and we look at things from both angles, and we try both, and we experiment, and maybe we find ways to do both. Maybe we shift and do more on the amplifying strengths. We can all kind of make our own decisions on that, but really important as we're thinking about mental well-being. So continuing to offer another lens. So we can, as mentioned before, we can think about character strengths for both well-being and adversity. So, when I think about the 1,000 studies that have been done with character strengths, if I was to be a bit superficial, or just try to summarize it, in as small of a way as possible, and there's obviously many, many ways we could summarize it. One way, not the only way, but one way would be that character strengths are beneficial for well-being, and character strengths are beneficial for managing adversity, handling adversity, sometimes overcoming adversity, sometimes transcending adversity, but they're helpful for both. And we have a number of studies to support both sides of the equation, and I won't go into all that right now, but you can see it all summarized on the VIA site under the researchers tab. So a couple of different articles that might be useful. These are two of the more popular articles in character strengths in the last few years. One was by Lee Waters and colleagues that was talking about character strengths and mental health as having a bolstering effect for mental health, to bolster our well-being. Maybe you feel somewhat well, but you can kind of bolster it, make it even stronger, but also as a way to buffer from problems happening, or from problems getting worse. So that's kind of on the adversity end of things. And a couple years before that study came out, I mapped out 6 different functions of character strengths along these two threads. That on the well-being thread, character strengths can have a priming effect. They can prime us, so we can be thinking about our strengths and playing with our strengths and imagining our strengths. And then we can be more likely to be able to use our strengths in that next situation that we're about to go into. But there's clearly a big mindfulness effect when we can be mindful of our character strengths. That can accentuate them because we're being aware of them, we're tuned into them. And then there's an important appreciation effect with character strengths, a value add when we appreciate our own strengths and appreciate the strengths of other people. That can be a type of relationship connection or glue. And then on the other side, there's these different effects of character strengths can buffer us from different problems. And that's been shown in many different studies. They can have a reappraisal effect, that we can use strengths to look at a problem from a different lens. Not to necessarily replace, but it's a different lens. So many times, two of my kids have diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it's not just kind of like, oh yeah, they kind of are hyperactive. They have the condition. So, do I look at them, my own kids, as just this label running around, just this ADHD label, or do I look at them from a lens of strengths and see some of that hyperactivity as zestful and as hopeful and as humorous, funny? Do I look at the inattentiveness to some degree but what are they attending to? Maybe they're being very curious about something else. They're using their love of learning in a different way. They're using their judgment critical thinking in a different way. So it helps me as the parent, this is just one example, but helps me as a parent to be able to look more fully at the human being. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't have ADHD. It doesn't mean that we don't treat it, because we actually do treat the ADHD medically, but that there's so much more that we can do and so much that's missing that's not talked about. And to be fair, it's not been studied all that much with character strengths. It's emerging, and I have a chapter about it in a book I just published on character strengths and disabilities last year with Dan Tomasulo. But there's so much more that we don't know. So reappraisal can be applied really to any problem, any conflict, any stressor, any adversity. Again, it doesn't cure it, but it could be another lens, another way to work with it and to be empowered. Very empowering, this character strength work is. And then character strengths has a resilience effect. Character strengths have been shown to be connected with resilience in many different ways. And there isn't really a recipe for which strengths are more resilient, kind of functional than others. And there might be some that are more obvious, like perseverance and hope. But there's again much more that we don't know still. But there is a resilience effect with character strengths. So these are some ways to look at character strengths for our mental well-being. Now, in that study I mentioned earlier, I asked the 10,000 plus people, for your mental health, which of these 24 character strengths, and I defined them all, which would you wish for? If you could have one of these character strengths, what would it be? And here's what people said. Actually, 1/5 of people around the world said one of these two. They wished for more self-regulation, and they wished for more bravery. So there's this sense of wanting more control, more discipline of themselves, for maybe managing their habits, maybe managing more control with managing their mind, more kind of mindfulness work for observing the mind more closely. And also it says that maybe people are quite feeling they don't have a great control of themselves in lots of times, or in life, or with their bad habits or their vices. And then the other side, with bravery, it shows that people are really wanting more courage to face their struggles and their fears, and to be able to take that worthwhile risk, and they could see the risk, and it's worthwhile to take that risk, to challenge oneself. But do they actually do it? As some research that I've been doing with Panini Russo-Netzer and Jeffrey Cohen at Stanford, there's work that they initiated on comfort zone and helping people move out of their comfort zone. And so we ran a study and found that character strengths can be very helpful with helping people to move out of their comfort zone. And bravery is one of those strengths that could be particularly important. So people are wanting more of that, wishing for that. So another set of findings here. And then we're going to gather this and move into some small group discussion. So with this question, I was inviting people to consider how they might use character strengths for a mental well-being approach. And I offered them deliberately 6 choices, 2 for each of the psychological elements. So 2 on thinking, 2 on feeling, and 2 on behaving. And you can see that for each, there's one question that's around new, doing something new and different, like with your thinking, with your feeling, with your actions. And there's one of just kind of doing it, just using your thinking by challenging it, or just facing your feelings, understanding your feelings, or just taking action. So there's kind of the general, and then there's doing something in a new way. Generally, what we find is that it's harder for people to do something new. It's harder for them to engage, even in their thinking, to engage in doing a new thing, and then much less to do it. And you can see that partially bears out here. From the feeling perspective, it was easier. People would say that their top choice is actually to face and understand their feelings, which kind of surprised me that was going to be the top choice, but that's what they thought would be most helpful for their mental health. So in my opinion, as a psychologist, I applaud that. Give credit to that, and to the 24% of people that said that. My goodness, that isn't always what I found in doing psychotherapy. People really hesitated to tap into their feelings, understand their feelings, and they really struggled with it many times. Not everybody, but at least the clients I was working with. So credit this population, which wasn't a mental health population, it's just in general people who might have had a mental health problem or might not have, we don't know, facing understanding feelings and using character strengths to do it. And the second choice was another feeling element, which is to manage my feelings, but do it in a different way than I've done it before, maybe a more positive way. So collectively, that makes up, what, 42% of people. That's quite extraordinary. So that tells us, those practitioners, that, man, those are two tools right there, two strategies to start to bring to my conversations with my clients or to myself. And then we have the behavioral piece of taking action, and we have thinking in a new way. So that outdid just challenging our thinking. And then trying a new or positive behavior was the most challenging. And then 10% of people said none of the above, or they didn't know what to say. So yeah, my purpose in showing this slide is for us to be challenging ourselves and how we think about this work, and starting to map out new approaches where character strengths can be the centerpiece to help with our mental well-being. Again, whether that's to deal with a current mental struggle, or whether that's to prevent, or whether that's just to feel even more mentally well. Now, I do want to just kind of give a caveat to everything here, is I don't want anyone, just because I talk in a maybe a deliberate way, and I'm sharing research and I'm sharing practices and my own thoughts and experiences, I don't mean in any way to come across that, gosh, there's just thousands of studies showing all this. And in some of these cases, it's one study. On that table that I showed that took up the whole screen, that was 7 studies. And I think there's a couple more beyond that now. So still, we take it all with a grain of salt. We learn, we use our critical thinking. We appreciate the truth in it. I hope we're all doing that, appreciate the truth in it. And then we run the studies to replicate or to create new studies on these. We test out in a safe way these as interventions and so on. That's important, I think, to say. Okay, so I want to invite us to engage in a small group experience, and this is for everybody. I just want to give a caveat first that I know that not everybody likes small group work. And you know what? I'm actually one of those people. If I came to this point in the webinar, I'd be like, I'm not sure I want to do that, or I'm kind of busy, I'm going to email somebody instead. But what I've also learned about myself, and what I would encourage everybody, is try to do it anyway. Because you will learn, you will probably gain quite a bit. You don't have to talk. You could say pass. You could say, I just would like to be a listener, please. But please try to be a listener, because me knowing who's in the room here, I don't know everybody, but I know a lot of the people, and you have tremendous wisdom around you. So please try to engage as best you can in this. This won't be savvy enough, my breakup of the groups, to like combine researchers and practitioners and, combine people from this country or that country. Maybe a different community event will do that. But for now, it'll be random. And I want to invite you to pick one of these 2 questions, I should say set of questions, and share your first thoughts. Kind of getting at the bolstering component, or the reducing symptoms component, the buffering component. So what is, as you think, what is your best strategy for reducing your suffering, your mental suffering, your symptoms? What have you found? And maybe you've not found something amazing, but what have you found? And then how do character strengths help with that? And maybe you've never thought of that part before, but I can guarantee you, and this is my guarantee, character strengths are part of it. So how can character strengths, how do they help you with that buffering, with that reducing of symptoms? Or you might choose to go with number 2, the boosting mental well-being. So what's your best thing to just feel? You might feel pretty good. On a 1 to 10 scale, you feel like you're a 5 mentally, in terms of feeling good. And how do you get to a 7 on that mental well-being scale that I just kind of made up? So how do you go from a 5 to a 7? You know, that's kind of the boosting piece here, the boosting effect or the bolstering. And again, I guarantee you, character strengths are part of it. So how are character strengths part of your own personal boosting approach? Okay, so that's what I'm going to invite us to do. And as you think about that, I'm going to break us up into the rooms here. Okay, so I'm going to make it 6 to 7 per room, people. And let me just say, I know there's going to be a great temptation for everybody to spend lots of time introducing themselves and welcoming, and that's the way you are, and that's wonderful. But we don't have a ton of time. So what I want to invite you to do is somebody just to jump in, please. Somebody jump in first. Use your bravery and introduce yourself that way. So I would say, you know what, group, I'm going to jump in. Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm Chief Science Officer of the Bee Institute on Character. Yeah, and I'm going to tackle number 2. So with number 2, da 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 da. Okay, so that would be the way to do it rather than first starting with the chit chat, because then you won't have time left and you'll miss the richness. So that would be my suggestion. And how much time will you have? About 10 minutes or so. We'll kind of monitor that. So hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from everybody, maybe about it. Maybe it'll be a little bit more than 10 minutes. So close to a couple minutes opportunity for each person. Okay, so please dive in and I'll give you little notes of how much time we have left. Okay, see everybody soon.
Me mid.
Hello, everybody. We are back. Great to see everybody again, and so many great discussions going on. Sorry to interrupt by coming back here. I know many of you would have wanted to keep going. But let's take a moment to do a little bit of crowdsourcing from everybody. So I want to invite you to turn to chat and to share, you know, as succinctly as you can, what is one way that you would use one of your character strengths to manage a symptom, mental symptom, or to build up your well-being. So if you could put in the chat, please put the name of the strength, whether you're reducing or increasing your mental health or reducing a symptom. And then what's the strategy? Maybe just a phrase, you know, maybe it's a sentence. Okay. So please go ahead and offer that. And that way all of us can start to experience a little bit more of the benefit of all the groups. You know, you had the benefit of hearing from 3 or 4 or 5, or in some cases 6 other people. And now you get the chance to hear a lot more strategies, even if brief, that might catalyze more possibilities for you. So again, the name of the strength, whether you're reducing a symptom or increasing your well-being, I know it can be a little bit of both, and then the phrase or the description of what you would do. Okay, so thank you for getting us started, Margarita. So we have gratitude, using meditation and prayer. Alex, using curiosity to explore the issue. For Rebecca, it's gratitude to increase mental health with a daily gratitude, meditation, and prayer. Namvar, the same. Christina, bringing humor to calming lightheartedness into crisis and crisis situations that I de-escalate at work. And I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm seeing a wide range of character strengths used here. Some patterns, some similarities with spirituality and humor and curiosity coming up. Kindness coming up quite a bit. And I'll just kind of let all of you just kind of soak it in, review it. If there is interest, we could share the chat log. When I share the chat log, I kind of take out some of the extraneous stuff. And that way you kind of have this on hand. So please do continue to share. That way we'll have a record of it. And again, it's one of those, it's one of those things that, you know, we're delving into more and more at VIA of this kind of crowdsourcing work and collecting practices. So some of these practices that you're sharing are evidence-based. And some of them could become evidence-based, but we need to have the researchers study them. See what I mean? So the researchers on the call might be looking and getting some ideas, And the practitioners are also getting ideas and maybe sharing those with the researchers. So we kind of have this nice feedback loop back and forth. And all along the way, VIA is getting the ideas because, again, we'll save this, we'll study it, and who knows, maybe it'll be the catalyst for a future webinar or future community activity and so on. Okay, so keep that going. And we are getting right toward the end here. Let's see. Let me please share with you the poll that I offered earlier. And I'm going to ask you the same question. And so please answer this question. And if you've changed your mind on this in some way, please share that. If you didn't answer it the first time, you can answer it this time. But when we say community, it could be something like you've experienced here today, where we have different modes of learning and different forms of connecting. And yeah, we might tweak it this way and give more time for small group, or offer an extra feature or that. But it'd be this kind of idea of a topic within an hour, different learning modalities. So we'll allow that to keep rolling, and I will just again, we just want to wish VIA. I know it sounds weird; it's a little awkward for me to say, but I just want to wish VIA that happy 25th anniversary. It's very exciting for me and for all of us. And then I want to turn it to Sarah, my wonderful colleague at VIA in the marketing department, and she just wants to share with you a little bit about what's on the slide here to help close. And in this way, you have things you can kind of keep moving forward with character strengths if you so choose.
Yes. First, what an amazing time in the small group, Ryan. Thank you for creating space for us all to do that. I met two amazing individuals. And then, yes, happy 25 years to VIA. How exciting to be celebrating this huge milestone. And so to celebrate 25 years and also nearly 35 million people discovering their character strengths, we want to invite you to amplify the impact. So consider donating today to VIA. We are a nonprofit organization, and we want to keep providing free resources like this webinar and the survey for many years to come. And then as a thank you for being a part of this journey, we're also sharing 2 exclusive offers with you today. So listed up here on the slide, we are offering a discount to our MBSP program, which was created by the only Dr. Ryan Niemiec, who is with us today. And then also our new workplaces consultant certification, offering 15% off. So I am going to put in the chat all these links as well as the discount codes for you to access. And then you can expect an email from us later today with these same links and offers inside, as well as the recording. And then just wanted to know, we did have some questions that came in through the chat. And so I'll share those with Ryan, and hopefully we can add some of that into the email as well for you. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll be around here for a few more minutes. And we're really, really happy that you joined us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Here is my email, everybody. So if you, I welcome you to send me questions that way as well, but we'll answer them the other way as well. And if you need resources, articles, please feel free to reach out. And so may all of us go